Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today is the last of my holiday series for this year. We're going to be making quilling paper Christmas lights. So we're going to be using our holiday green from Craft Harbor that I just showed for our wire, and then I have a variation of other bright colors here that we're going to use for the bulbs. These colors are completely up to you. If you don't choose those, you can do whatever you'd like. But I do also have a tiny bit of white here, and that's going to be for the highlight in our bulbs. For other supplies, you can use whatever quilling tool you like. I have my needle tool here, but I also have my Quill Creations Savvy Slotted tool, which I really like. I do have my tweezers because some of these pieces are very small, some small scissors, and a paintbrush to get rid of any excess glue. I do have my parchment paper covered workboard and some pins. We're going to need those for a little bit. As far as glue goes, I have the usual Elmer's Glue All in the needle nose bottle, and then also tacky glue for a couple of parts. And then these Christmas lights are going to end up on this gift tag. So I have that here ready to go when I need it. First thing we're going to do is make the wire for our lights. So I have this holiday green paper strip here. It is, like I said, from Craft Harbor. It is 1/8 inch wide, as are all the strips I'm using today, and it's about 24 inches long. So I am going to make that into a double thick strip. I've done this many times. You've heard me say this a bunch of times. All it is a matter of folding a really long strip in half, adding a solid line of glue, not a thick line of glue, but solid, all the way down 1/2, and then refolding it and squeezing it from end to end a few times to get all the air bubbles out. Now, like I said, I'm using this for the wire of my Christmas lights, and since quilled Christmas lights aren't a new craft, I did not come up with this idea. You can go online and find a bunch of different variations. I decided I was going to make this project my own, put my own little spin on it. So what we're going to be doing is using this double thick strip, like I said, to make the wire, but have it sort of an illusion where it looks like it's going in coils and kind of wrapping around in little loops. So you'll see that in a little bit. And I'm also showing here that I did that little strip of white and I made that into a double thick strip as well. So make those two and then put that aside. And at this point, I'm going to demonstrate how you can make super fast little light bulbs. I have 6 inches here of this, I think it's a deep blue from Quilling Creations, and I'm just rolling it end to end. This is super fast, super easy. Nothing fancy here, just very basic quilling. Take that off of your tool and let it open up a bit in your hands. And then we're just going to turn it into a teardrop, which is just after you add your glue to your tail, you're just going to give it a good pinch. And an easy way to hide that seam is by making that the end of your point. Just like that, really fast, and that's going to be our little light bulb, but you're going to need a few of these. So I have like 2 or 3 of the 4 different colors that I chose. But again, your colors are up to you. I will leave links to all these colors in the description box for the video, however. Now we're going to add a very small highlight of light because, you know, when you're looking at a little Christmas light, it's glowing. It makes a little light, a little highlight on one corner. So to do that, I had that double thick white strip already dried, and I snipped off with my scissors about 1/8 of an inch, maybe there, a little bit more. Curved it a couple times with my needle tool, and now I'm just going to gently slide it into the top side of one of my light bulbs, and that's it. I didn't use any glue. They can come out, but they don't often. It's pretty easy to get a lot of your light bulb very gluey if you do try to squeeze that in with glue on there, so I wouldn't take too much time to worry about that. Here's a second one, little tiny snip of the thick white paper, curl it slightly with my needle tool, and that curling just helps it form to the shape of your light bulb where you're going to put it in. If you leave these straight, it's kind of a little bit trickier to push this in there. It can be a little frustrating. Sometimes the coil is just too tight and that doesn't want to go in. Don't force it. Maybe flip it over, try the other side. I like to keep them all in the same angle on my light bulbs because the light's always shining from one direction and you want it to be in that direction. So now we are going to start making our little loop-de-loops with our wire piece, that green thick strip that I made. If you want to, you can draw this ahead of time so you have kind of a guide. I did not go that route. That's completely up to you. If you do a light drawing with a pencil, that'll give you a place to go, or you can kind of emboss by pressing in with an embossing tool, and that will give you kind of a guideline. I have to make this loop-de-loop in 3 different sections because, like I said earlier, it's an optical illusion that the lines are wrapping. They're actually not going to be going through each other because that's impossible. We're just going to make it in 3 different sections. So I'm loosening up my paper here by running it through my fingers and running it with my needle tool. And then this is the first shape that I'm going for. I have a nice curve, and then I'm going to make a loop on the end. Tacky glue is going to be your friend for this part. It would definitely work with regular glue. It would just take a little bit longer to set. So a little bit of tacky glue on the end of where the loop's going to be. And this one, I'm not worried about the size and shape too much. I'm just trying to make a loop since this is the first one, and also because I didn't sketch out that actual line, I can make this a little bit freeform. If you have an exact shape that you're looking for, it might take a little bit more time for you to get this shape exactly how you want it. And once I get the general loop that I'm looking for, I am using some pins in every angle, to keep that loop in place while the glue dries. And it's going up at a sort of a slant here, but I don't want it to dry like that because then it'll make it a little harder to glue flat on my gift tag. So I put that other pin just to keep that tail flat. After a few minutes, that's going to be dry. And get it lined up here. This is what my first loop is going to look like. And now I need some more of the green to make the next loop. So it's going to come right from where that loop ends. It's going to go up a little bit, I think, is what I'm looking for. And then it's going to have another loop on the end, but I think that I'm going to have that loop kind of go in the other direction. So take my needle tool about 1 inch down, because remember I had it sloping down first where it was connecting, loosen that up to make the loop on this end go that way. This is why the double thick strip is going to be really useful, because you can really kind of manipulate it and it will stay. That could work a little bit with a regular strip without it being thicker, but it definitely has more staying power with the double thick strip. Or if you like to buy different papers, you would use something like a cardstock or some other paper that's meant for on-edge quilling for this as well. So here's my second loop, and I'm going to make this little setup the same way I did before, where it is going to be surrounded by pins and help that dry. And then we can move on to the third piece. Everything's now dry, so take those pins out and let's make sure that this will line up and look the way I want. That's pretty much what we're looking for. And then just one more little swoop to the bottom, but no more loops for this guy here. So let's just get that straight, or sorry, get that curved really. But also one thing to mention, I think I glossed over it earlier, wherever your loop is connecting either to the piece itself or the piece in front of it, you want to make sure that torn edge is where it's connecting to the rest of the wire. I just cut off that piece because it's a little bit too long. That's not going to connect to anything, so cut is fine, but you really want that extra gripping power of the torn paper wherever it's going to meet the piece in front of it. So another little snip there, and that looks like that size will probably work. So I'm happy with all that. And now it's time to start gluing down my wire. And to do that, I do have my brush handy in case I have any excess glue that is squeezed out, and I have my tweezers. I'm going to be using Elmer's glue for this one. I'm not going to be using the tacky glue. And for the most part, just because this Elmer's glue is a little bit easier to control. You want very, very little glue on this. Even these dots, honestly, are a lot, because a lot of this is just going to get squeezed out and then have to be cleaned up. So I use my stuck to my fingers. I use my tweezers here to get the paper strip exactly where I want it, and then using the paintbrush, apologies for the zoom, using the paintbrush, wipe away any excess that's peeking out from either side. And you can do all three of your pieces, or however many you end up with, at the same time, or you can do them one at a time like I'm doing. I just put my board on there with a little bit of weight to make sure that it dries flat. After a couple minutes, I can move on to my next piece. And it's going to look exactly the same. Tiny bit of glue, just around the edge a little bit, a couple of dots. And then you can also just tap, tap, tap a couple times, and that will take a bit of that excess glue off, but still leave enough for you to get a nice seal. And notice that I have the end of that second loop right where that first loop ended. So that's where that whole illusion part comes in. It looks like it's one continuous piece of paper, but it's just made in 3 different sections. So let's put on my last piece here, and again, making sure that it lines up with the loop. I don't know, my fingers were really sticky right now. I kept picking up the paper with it. A little bit of weight on there again, and let that dry for a few minutes. The last part of these lights is the little connector piece between the wire and the lights. So this is just a standard strip of that same holiday green. It's about 2 inches long, and just rolling it end to end, and we're going to make a tiny little square, which I've done a few times in this holiday series. I'm not sure, I've never made so many squares. I don't know why they've all come up in the last month, but in case anybody hasn't seen those, it's just a standard coil rolled up from end to end, and whatever tool you like. You're going to pinch 2 sides, turn it, and then pinch the other 2 sides. So you're doing the opposite sides. Pinch both of those, turn it, pinch the other 2 sides, and that's your little square. And that's what's going to be connecting your lights to your wire. I have a whole bunch of those here. And I have my light bulbs. So at this point now we can start deciding exactly on the layout of our bulbs. I like to have them going from either side of our wire, just because if you have a whole, twirly length of Christmas lights, they're not all going to be on the same side. They go from either side. So I have some connectors going from one side, one from the other, some coming from the loops, some coming from the curved parts. So first, let's have an idea of where we want all these to go. And I feel like this section is kind of bald. So let's put that there. And let's just move these around a little bit. Ooh. Stuck in my tweezer. There we go. So I think that's sort of the general idea of where the lights can go. And then let's decide which colors are going to go where. And like I had mentioned earlier, with the highlight from the white, having them all be facing the same side of the light bulbs. So if this light bulb is going this way, let's make sure that the light is on the same side of the bulb. You can see the highlight from either side of the light bulb. You can flip it upside down and you'll see I lost the highlight out of that one. So let's use this purple one here. And I had to turn that around because the highlight would have been on the wrong side. And I apologize for the camera that's zooming in and out here. I don't know why it's being so silly, but let's just get these where we want them. And then it's just a matter of gluing everything down. So after I have everything lined up, take each piece off, put a little bit of glue on the connector and a little bit of glue on the light bulb, and that's all you got. And here is the finished gift tag. It does look like one continuous string of Christmas lights, and you can see the highlight. You can write on the back. Totally ready to go. I have a bigger version here. You could make this into a card as well. Similar idea. Because we use that double thick strip, it's going to be a little bit sturdier, but still, in general, I would be a little bit careful with these since it is just a really open on-edge quilling that doesn't have a lot protecting it per se. I really hope you enjoyed this last craft of the season. I do have links for every tool that I used and every paper that I used in the description box for the video. You'll also find a link to the rest of my Christmas craft playlist. There are a lot of crafts in there, so you have plenty to do up until the new year. There's plenty of ideas. You'll be able to find many, many more crafts. Don't hesitate to leave any questions you have in the comment section, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And also, one more thing to look for in the description box is a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page, where you can show some extra support, which helps me to keep being able to create new projects for the channel. And there's also an extra video there as well, so check that out. In the meantime, don't forget, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video, and I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.